Good morning. Thank you for taking the time this morning to join Metropolitan Community College for an opportunity to learn more about Black history through artistic performance. My name is Barbara Velasquez. As the college's coordinator of international intercultural education, it is my honor to welcome you and moderate today's program, Chamber Music Theater, followed by discussion with the Core Ensemble's managing director and actress Shirley Jackson and pianist Mikhail Germani. Your microphones are silenced. Please use the chat function to send communications and questions to any of the hosts. Start sending your questions to moderator Barbara Velasquez at any time during the performance. I will present your question to the speakers after the performance ends. Please also watch the chat for a link to an online evaluation. We so appreciate your feedback. Our actress, Shirley Jackson, and pianist, Mikhail Germani, will be introduced after the performance. At this time, we invite the Core Ensemble's managing director, Margot Emery, to introduce the performance, Unbought. Margot has served as managing director of the Core Ensemble for over 20 years. She manages touring from the ensemble's home base in South Florida. The ensemble has performed in all of the 50 United States, as well as England, Russia, Ukraine, Australia, and the US Virgin Islands. Good morning, Margot, and a hearty welcome from Metropolitan Community College in Omaha, Nebraska.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you for this opportunity. This show that we're about to see, Unbought, is the latest Core Ensemble production. It's something that I have been very excited about putting together because I find these characters to be so compelling. They seem to me so relevant to us today in the things that they have to say to us. The most recent, historically, of course, is Shirley Chisholm. And if you're as old as I am, you actually may remember her. And I remember what a fabulous speaker she was and how compelling her speeches were. And you'll get a sense of that when you hear our actress relating some of these speeches. They're really brilliant. Then, of course, the next one back in time is Ida B. Wells, who's getting a lot of attention right now because she recently got a posthumous Pulitzer Prize. So she's much in the press and we hear a lot about her. And of course, we honor her for her wonderful work in anti-lynching and also women's suffrage. She was very, very active in getting the right to vote for women. And then, of course, the most historically distant is Sally Hemings, who was the slave of Thomas Jefferson, who had 5 children who were fathered by Jefferson. Actually, I think it was 6. One died in childhood. But she is the most mysterious to me because, of course, we don't have any video footage. We don't have any journals or anything that she wrote. But I think you can get a sense of her if you've ever been lucky enough to visit Monticello to see the slave quarters and what it was like. She's just such a fascinating character. So I hope that you will enjoy this performance. I don't know, Mikhail, do you want to add anything to that? Anything people should be looking for? Anything about the music before we start?
No, I think you said it all, but just the music is kind of drawn from all periods and it features music of Black composers, and we try to match it to the time of their lives as well as best as we can, but sometimes if the mood fits it, we just put that into play. But you said it. Thanks for the intro, Margo.
Great. Well, let's watch.
Hello, everyone. What an amazing performance. We're so thankful to the Core Ensemble for moving forward from live in-person performances only to this virtual opportunity that we've been able to enjoy during the pandemic. I want to thank those of you who have been sending in questions, and as I stated at the beginning, I will voice your questions to Margaret, Mikhail, and Shinnery has joined us. So if we could start out with Margot, to introduce Mikhail and Shinnery, who are also with us.
Yes, Mikhail Darmani is our core ensemble pianist. He's been working with us for quite a few years now. As you heard on the video, he is a monster pianist. He's a very, very accomplished, equally accomplished in jazz and popular styles, as well as classical music. He is also a pianist with the Warp Trio, which is a sort of a fusion group of popular jazz and concert music, a very successful trio. The other thing that Mikhail does for us is he's very adept at helping us in the production process when we're layering the music in with the text. He's very clever and creative at that part of the production. So we thank him for that. And Shinnery Jackson, our fabulous actress, well, who could be more charismatic than Shinnery? We love her and adore her. She's great to work with. Shinnery went to Oberlin College and got her master's degree at the University of Tennessee. She has performed in regional theater all over the country, worked with the core ensemble for many years. She is now on the faculty of the University of Tennessee in the theater department, one of our country's best theater departments, as I understand it. So we're just very blessed to work with these wonderful artists.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So if we could start, we've got some great questions coming in. Shinnery, which amazing women did you enjoy portraying the most?
The most, I really love Ida B. Wells. She was the first. Can you hear me? I'm so sorry. I hope that everybody,
Yes.
Great, excellent. I should have done a sound check first. But yeah, Ida B. Wells is a favorite of mine. I think that it is remarkable what she did in her time. The fact that she was not only for voting rights for Black women, but also that she was against lynching, that she was a brilliant, brilliant reporter, journalist, and went all over the world just telling people about what America was doing to their Black population at that time. I just think that her bravery is something that I really hold on to. So I love playing Ida.
Thank you so much. Now, initially, these questions are going to sound like they're all focused at Shinnery, but I would like Mikhail and Margot to know that if you would like to add, please do. But I'm going to roll some questions all together, so get ready. And if you need me to repeat any, let me know. So, how do you build a character personality with historical figures? Where do you draw inspiration to bring them to life? How does nuance of interpretation and their literal identities collide in the portrayal of the characters? And how long does it take you to prepare for each phenomenal woman? So this is a whole presentation in itself.
Yes, I'm writing it down. Okay, how do you build a character from scratch? With Ida and with Shirley, it was a bit easy because with Ida, you have all of the accounts of what she did and her own accounts. There are people knew her, people wrote about her. She was a very popular figure in the Black community all over, not just in Chicago or New York, everywhere. So there are so many accounts about what she looked like, her tenacity. I don't think I captured her tenacity too well, but she was a spitfire and she did not care. When you think about that idea of equality that we're all trying to strive towards, she had it when she was born. She never, ever sort of had an idea of inferiority. She always knew she was with everybody and she could speak and everything like that. With the Shirley, of course, YouTube. I know it sounds ridiculous, But there are so many recordings of her interviewing and doing all of her speeches on YouTube. Every single thing is there. So all I did was watch and read her, of course, I think it's autobiography. I might have that wrong. I read it a long time ago, but the book, I read about her and just watching how she spoke. And the beauty of Shirley Chisholm is that, which is unlike the other women that I play in this and in Ain't I a Woman, is that she kept speaking. So there are interviews of her well into her older age, because people kept wanting to say, how did you do it? How did you do it? How did you do it? And kept going back to that, the idea that she was the first Black woman to run for president. And they kept wanting to know her story throughout the years of her life. So there are a lot of interviews of her from the time she decided to become a congresswoman up until the time that she died. And I encourage everyone to please go out and actually listen to this woman's words, listen to what she has to say. As you know, in her speech, a lot of the things she said in 1972 is the same things we're saying today, which is, sad, melancholy, yes, but we can still take up the fight that she left, so that her words don't have to be real anymore in the future. So that's that. I know I'm like on a soapbox about Shirley Chisholm, but I love her. The inspiration question, can you repeat that one?
That is, where do you draw inspiration to bring them to life?
Oh, from their lives. I did not speak on Sally Hemings, because she's one of those characters. Do you know how we just treat people from that time as if they are fictional? They're not, but because their lives, they're in movies and they're in books, and the how we recount their lives is sometimes in this big mythical idea, right? So with her, I really had to think about her in modern times, if that makes sense. What would it be like to be under a jurisdiction of a powerful white man now? And I know that sounds really weird, but it's just, I needed her to be real and not just some sort of mythical slave in my mind. There's not a lot written about her, and everything is from someone else's mouth. If you ever read about her, it's always something that someone said about her. With the other women, it was from their mouth. They were like, this is me, this is how I am. I do, I'm going to fight for justice. So that's how I went with her. And the inspiration just comes from being a Black woman, the different sides that we all have, most importantly, vulnerability. I think that sometimes that's missing from the telling and the retelling of these women's stories. And I think what Kim Hines, the writer, does very well in both Ain't I a Woman and in this one, Unbought, is that she really sort of makes them real by kind of pumping up their vulnerability. She doesn't make them scared, but she does say, I was hurt. I was in pain. When Ida talks about her friend Thomas, that was one of her good friends. She brings in the whole three-dimensional person, as opposed to I'm just a strong Black woman fighting for justice. So that's really where the inspiration comes in the writing, and then when I learn about their more vulnerable moments in their lives. The next question. Oh, I wrote it down, but I can't read my handwriting.
I should probably repeat this one. How does nuance of interpretation and their literal identities collide in the portrayal of these characters?
Sometimes it doesn't. I have to really pay attention to And that's kind of a non-answer. But to be more specific and to answer the question, sometimes I have to really pay attention to how they would sound in the time that they lived. And I have to pay attention to their educational process. Specifically with Ida, she was educated very young at a time when it was hard for Black people to get education, period. So you sort of have to understand what that means, what kind of education she would be getting. The way she writes is, if you ever read her writing, it's super formal. And that's really not how we're taught, or at least that's not how I taught. Maybe you were. Let me not speak for anybody, but that's not how I was taught. So I had to get into prose. What is prose? And she speaks in a very formalized prose. And then Kim Hines wrote her in a very formalized prose, if that makes any sense. So just in the nuances of their growing up. With Sally Hemings, you have to understand, yes, she grew up on a plantation in the South, but she also went to France and learned French. And she was educated with her white peers, with Thomas Jefferson's children. So how she wouldn't have that sort of stereotypical slave talk that you see she would speak with a little bit of a heightened tongue. So I tried to sort of understand those things. And then with Shirley, like I said, everything is filmed. So, but hers was, she does, if you listen to her, she does have a little bit of an island accent, but then she has an American, sort of Black American, 1950s, she has an early Black American education. And I don't know if anybody's older out there, but it was a specific way you went to school and were taught to speak. My grandmother had it, and she would code what we call code switching. There was a specific way that she was taught to speak when you're in front of white people. And then you could relax, and she's from Jacksonville, Florida. So I imagined that particular idea for Shirley. She wouldn't let any of that slip, and she never did. If you go back to the YouTube, all the videos of her speaking, she always had sort of a very formalized way of talking. And she had a Barbadian lilt, right? So getting those things was kind of, it's actually quite fun. I highly recommend it if there's any actors out there. Doing these women is phenomenal to me. And then, you know, there's also sort of my own accent. I'm from the South. I have a little tiny lilt. A lot of people say I have an accent. I don't hear it, but some people do. And then just marrying those things together for each woman. There's a specific way that I talk that's kind of presentational. So it was easy for me to get that presentational acting style out there because all of these women, even though they were badasses and like very, very out, oops, pardon my French, sorry. I curse a lot. I have to be careful. I always forget, I'm sorry. But they were amazing women and sort of seemingly extroverted. When you read about their life, they all were quiet book readers, nerds. You know, we don't think about that with our heroes, but they were all nerds. They loved to read, write, prose, poetry, all of it. So then to get that sort of theatrical style for all of these very, very private and quiet women, that is one of the things I had to marry together. So I think that's the answer to that question. Not to go on and on.
And just, we're going to move over to Mikhail, but I did want
Please, yes.
We know about how long does it take to prepare for each character?
I have forgotten because I've been doing this for a long time, as Margot probably already told you. I would say about, well, I can't put it together. I'm very sorry, because there's the watching of every woman. there's the research, right? Which takes a very long time. Once Michael Parola, who is the director of everything, he owns the core ensemble company. Once he told me, oh, these are the women that I want to have in our play. Well, that was a long time ago. So I just started being like, okay, so what is this woman? And reading about them and reading their writing and reading how they are and really reading about Sally Hemings, because I had nothing except for that she was a mixed woman of color who was a former slave. So I really had to research. So I would say researching and thinking about it and developing about a year. Actually sitting down and doing the show, maybe about a week and a half. So there you go. And I'll turn it over to Mikhail.
Mikhail, I really appreciate Margot commenting on how you have helped to in the overall production and development of all the shows in terms of, what kind of music to use, etc. So if you tell us a little bit about the music that's in this performance, how it was selected, and we have a specific shout out about Nowhere to Run.
Cool. Well, this one, Michael Parola and a little bit of Hugh Hinton, who was the original pianist for Core Ensemble, who kind of still is such an amazing encyclopedic pianist and educator, and just can put the pieces together to say, okay, if this is the subject matter, these are the three potential women that we will be using, just finding the right pool of things from that time. And so I can't quite speak too much on that, but a lot of them were obvious in a great way. Like the music of Mary Lou Williams, which is a lot of times when the trio was playing together. Mary Lou Williams was such an amazing pianist, composer, jazz arranger, and player, and is only now starting to get resurfaced. Like the past 2 years, like her music, she's famous for something called the Zodiac Suite. So we played Aquarius and Taurus, I think, in this show. And we chose a spiritual because, spiritual seemed to be, we didn't pick a obvious one. We picked Let the Work That I've Done Speak for Me. Which when you think of somebody like Shirley, it's just so fitting that, as Shinri said, there's just the legacy that's documented, that we can see the work, and it is speaking for her, and her words still ring true to this day. And Scott Joplin is always thought of as, he's finally starting to get his recognition, but he's famous for just being the ragtime king, the entertainer. So we try to use so he's so known, we use Bethina, which was going to be his opera. That was kind of largely, there's a lot of pressure, I think, for that production, and it didn't end up being the big thing that it was, but it's beautiful and the music should be shared. And for Sally's scene, such a very intense scene, and also moments of lightness. So we almost didn't want to use the music from the era, because the French classical era at that moment for like piano, for cello, it was okay, but the geniuses of Mozart were next door. Mozart and Haydn. And so it was like, we thought if we could grab things from a 20th century France, in the way that Shinri was saying, is kind of putting different time frames together, time periods together, where the mood really connects it. And so during, that tragic scene of Jefferson's first taking advantage of Sally, we chose a solo piece from Olivier Messiaen, who's a 20th century French composer. And it just, as soon as I suggested the piece, and then we put it on, and Shinri was very active. Like, we would just try out things. Shinri can talk about it as well. she would read a script over a certain thing that I'm DJing or either playing on the piano. So just seeing what moods really connected, and also knowing when there didn't need to be, you know. So it was nice for me to start working in that way, because it's kind of changing my concept of drama, even for my own instrumental music.
Thank you. I imagine there's a significant time period, therefore, in finding the right music also. Yeah, the nod. We're gonna one last question because it's almost noon here. How have people received your presentation of these characters? Have they been amazed, disillusioned, challenged? Do you get feedback at the core ensemble that helps you to know what impact you're having?
Well, this is a brand new show, and we have not had that many opportunities to perform it. So that remains to be seen. I'm very optimistic about this show. I think because to me, these three women are so relevant even today. And we can talk a lot about all of the progress that has been made by women and by Black people, but we still have a lot to do. And so these people are people that we hold up as role models and inspiration. And I feel very optimistic about the way audiences will react to it. Like this is like the dawn of this show. It's brand new.
Yeah, and I'd agree. And I'd also say that just being out on the road with Shinnery and other shows, and doing a similar thing with core ensemble of different characters, different people, different stories, but similar messages of positivity and hope and things. It's like you really feel like a cultural ambassador in a certain way when we perform, because a lot of the audience reactions are, I mean, we've played this in parts of rural America where they've never heard of Langston Hughes, and people are like, oh my God, this poetry is beautiful. And so you feel kind of like you're bringing a little piece of something new to people. And that's one of the reasons I really enjoyed finding this organization, core ensemble, and keep going.
Thank you. Thank you. We so appreciate that. I'm going to encourage the audience to let us know through your online evaluation. You can help us answer that question, and then we can get that back to the core ensemble.
Yes.
How do you receive this? And then I'll also try to let the gentleman who asked that question know what we find out. So there is our evaluation. We so appreciate it. And I mean, I can't articulate how thankful I am to the core ensemble for what they put together. For somebody like me who sometimes gets distracted when it's only acting, it's really cool to have the visuals. And we had people mention that the historic examples in the video really help us to continue to connect with the music and what the artist is speaking to us. So thank you with that. And then Joe, could you please give us our next performance? Next Tuesday, February 15th at 2:15 p.m. CST. We're excited to bring to you the documentary Inside Buffalo, and Metro's Rick Eldridge is going to be our discussion leader. This will deal with Buffalo soldiers who were in Italy during World War II, and we hope you can join us. Eldridge Rick Bell. I apologize if I was looking over my notes and I didn't say his name correctly. Rick, I do know your name. So thanks to everybody for being here, and have a great afternoon. Please complete the evaluations.